Hey everybody, it's been a rough couple of weeks, but I don't want anyone to panic. Everything's going to be okay. It's just the end of Commander, okay? It's not going to be that bad.
There's more to life.
Yeah, there's other things you can do. There's other things you can do with your Magic cards. But
they're good heat source.
Yeah, for the moment, until the Rules Committee and Wizards of the Coast takes that away from us too. I am Elijah Samuelson.
And I'm Spencer Cook.
And yeah, it's probably been the biggest last 2 weeks for
the
Commander.
For big Commander changes since its inception, I want to say.
Probably ever. Yeah. Probably nearly ever. Since I've been playing, at least.
Do you think, I'm trying to think when Commander started. 15 years ago, would you say? That's a number that I would probably stand behind.
Yeah, probably around then was the first official pre-cons.
But even before then.
The format's existed since then. It's gone through a lot of changes. A lot of changes that were kind of just improvements to it and things being added. Maybe some rules things. There's been some bannings and stuff, but the recent bannings of the cards Dockside Extortionist, Mana Crypt, Jewel Lotus, and Nadu Winged Wisdom, probably the most expensive cards, like total like bannings.
Yeah,
and to ban 4 cards. At once.
I want to say that's the I don't think they've banned that many at once in the last at least many years, and probably this would definitely have to be the most controversial banning in the history of the format. And then to immediately 1 week after this, having the new largest change to the format in the, I guess, resignation of sorts of the Rules Committee and the handing the keys over to Wizards, essentially.
Handing over of the management of the Commander format to Wizards of the Coast, and the effective disbanding of the Rules Committee and the Commander Advisory Group and being moved into a new kind of committee working with Wizards employees. It's a big deal.
Yeah, so those are the two things that we're going to talk about on this emergency episode of the podcast.
I really liked that there was the big ban announcement Monday the 23rd, and then a week later, yesterday, we had the announcement of the Rules Committee handing it over to Wizards. And so it's like every Monday now, I'm hoping through the end of this year, because I love when things actually like happen in the world of Magic, so we have something to talk about. It's like a new seal of the apocalypse is being broken.
Yeah.
Like, what will they do next Monday?
I hope we get even larger changes every Monday coming forward. I can't even imagine what that would be. Maybe they'll ban a race from playing Magic or something. Like, that'd be crazy.
Monday the 23rd. I thought to myself, this is the biggest, Commander announcement maybe ever. And then yesterday, I think they topped it.
Yeah.
I think the change from the Rules Committee to being managed by Wizards that's probably the biggest thing that's happened now.
Yeah.
And so, we're going to go through here. And what do you say, Spencer? You want to just go down and read through the initial announcement from the 23rd of the bannings, and then we can kind of give in our takes on stuff as we go down here.
And we can talk about the bannings and then move over to talking about the ownership of the format.
I'll take things kind of chronologically here. So Monday the 23rd, there's September 2024 quarterly update. Cards banned, Dockside banned, Jewel Lotus banned, Mana Crypt banned, Nadu banned. Other things that they wanted to talk about were there's this silver border project that they've alluded to before. We're not going to talk about that. I don't know what the hell that's about, and I don't really care what that's about.
And maybe that's not even existent anymore. Maybe it's not going to be continued now that the thing has changed. But we'll skip that for now. Yeah.
And then they go into some explanations. And so as far as the cards, they say the philosophy of Commander prioritizes creativity, and one of the ways we have historically reflected that in the rules and ban list is to encourage a slower pace of the game than traditional formats. So, games of Commander tend to go pretty long sometimes, and aside from competitive EDH, I mean, it sounds fast, but I would always say like turn 7 is like a good pace for like when somebody starts trying to win in like casual commander.
I wouldn't be upset with that number.
And like it's not like they do win. I'm saying, but that's when stuff starts like heating up and like to maybe end if no interaction
in a casual
happens
game, sure.
In a casual game of commander. So then they say this kind of gives decks time and space to develop and do different things. We have a goal to make it easier for players who enjoy slower, more social games to have an environment for them to explore. So the cards that they've banned definitely do not contribute to that goal.
Not to a slower social game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
They can definitely lead to some experiences, like they say here in the article. Has the potential for somebody to get out to a fast start and kind of get into that first, like, arch-enemy position. But the advantage has been balanced by having multiple players, and that's something that I kind of agree with to a degree of, like, having 3 against 1, like with a Soul Ring start or something, is something that you can kind of get out from under, like you can deal with that one person.
Go watch an early episode of the podcast, the Soul Ring, whatever that Soul Ring episode was. Better than Soul Ring? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Then they say, in the past few years, notably since Strixhaven, we've seen a pattern of stronger mid-game cards, and that's leading to the player who skips past the early game being able to snowball their advantage straight through to the win. Occasional games like that are fine, but it shouldn't be common, and we're taking steps to bring that frequency down a bit by banning 3 of the most explosive cards in the format. And then they go on to kind of give their reasonings. Mana Crypt, they kind of say that the fact that you're kind of losing like 1.5 life like every turn, like approximately.
It's not very impactful, right?
Yeah, and it just kind of like snowballs you in like an early win that's like hard to stop. Jewel Lotus, letting you play like some pretty broken commanders as early as like turn 1 or 2. People will always like make this argument about Jewel Lotus. Oh, it makes my expensive commander playable.
No, I mean, it also makes the cheap commander even more playable. I don't think it's it's exponentially more valuable, like to play a 4-mana commander on turn 1, versus like a 8-mana commander on turn 3 or 4 or 5 or something. So
yeah, and typically, unless you're playing with some really old commanders or kind of like jank commanders, if your commander is 6 or 7 mana, it's because it's a lot stronger.
And it's not generally very healthy for someone to play their Coma on turn 4 or 3, right?
Yeah, or like I don't need to play my Gisela on like turn 2 or 3 to make it like a good card and contribute to the game.
Yeah, like you don't have like it's not like your expensive card is your expensive your commander who is a lot of mana. You can still have a very viable deck with that. Like you just you don't need to cheat it out. Like you chill.
Yeah, and they specifically mention in their article here the fact that they've been adding Ward onto a lot of strong commanders recently kind of
makes it even worse.
It makes this problem of having the early commander even harder to deal with. And then moving on to Dockside, they say it's normally not quite as explosive in the early game as the other cards, but it can still go mana positive like on turn 2 or like in the early game. They say it's been on the border of being banned for years, and we've shied away from taking action in the past because the card is scaled well with the power level of the table, which it gets better with the power level of the table, but I don't think it
scales well.
I'm of the opinion I'm pretty easy to please. I think if you get 3 treasures off your Dockside, that's how I do it whenever I'm goldfishing a deck with Dockside. I assume each person has one thing.
Yeah.
And it's still pretty good. It's still very good a lot of the time.
Yep.
Even with that.
And then in with Dockside, and the way that it often ends up being played is you play Dockside for more than a Dark Ritual worth of mana, and then you go for a win. Or otherwise, you play Dockside and then you bounce it or clone it or flicker it, and then you go for a win that way. And it's just it's a little bit of a too versatile. Also, like if you think of like Mana Geyser as like a 5-mana card that gives you a ton of mana to maybe go for a win, Mana Geyser is not versatile in the way that Dockside is. Dockside is like a ritual in the early game, or like you said, Eli, like a win condition almost in the late game.
Prior to this banning, I think, would you agree, is the strongest red card in Commander?
Yes, without too much thought, yes.
Yeah, and that's always something that struck me is they talk about they don't like to have things in the format that stifle creativity, and if you have a card that is just like the de facto like best card in any color, like auto include could go in like any deck, like that's usually not a great thing for creativity,
especially when it's a creature like Dockside. It's infinitely searchable, being a creature with 1 or 2 power in a red deck with or a white deck, recruiters, stuff like that. It's a goblin, so you can search it like that. There's a lot of ways you can get Dockside out of your deck if you really need to.
I think in my high power Commander deck, I think I had 3 cards, like just mostly for like 2, like I had the 2 recruiters, and then I threw in Goblin Recruiter just for like Kiki Jiki, Dockside, and like 2 other cards.
Goblin Welder,
yeah. So very good card. The last card that was banned was Nadu Winged Wisdom, which doesn't really fit with the other 3, so we're not going to talk about it a lot. Really, was there anything you wanted to say about Nadu?
The only thing I want to say is it's not like the other 3, and I am I don't obviously I know Nadu is pretty problematic in the gameplay that it facilitates with cards like with like Lightning Greaves and stuff like that. But I'm curious. I wonder if Nadu would have been banned this fast if there wasn't already the political will of Nadu being banned in other formats like Modern, and I think Standard too, right? Or is it just Modern? Whatever. But the point is, I'm curious about that. But obviously, I'm not upset about it being banned or anything. It's fine.
Yeah, you and I, we had talked about like how would the Nadu ban have looked for Commander if there wasn't like any Modern play with it, like if it wasn't like banned and everything.
Yeah, if it wasn't legal, if it wasn't legal in like other formats or something. Yeah,
if they just like had like the 3 fast mana cards and then like also like Nadu on here,
like what?
Like it objectively looks kind of strange, but like it seems like the card was likely some form of design mistake, and they've said as much, and also not very fun.
Yeah.
So probably a good thing to get that out of the way early, and that's one thing that we want to talk about, like with these, like so Nadu getting banned like relatively like soon after it came out wasn't a very expensive card, but these other cards, like there's so much to talk about, because like
Dockside's like I want to say 6 or 7 years old. Jeweled Lotus maybe 3 or 4 years old. Mana Crypt has been in the format since its inception.
Yeah.
So
and
the question to everyone's
those 3
mind,
cards.
Very expensive, yeah, right?
Very expensive.
Mana Crypt in the $200 range. I think Jeweled Lotus maybe somewhere in the... Did it reach 100 or was it more 80, something like that?
I think Jeweled Lotus was close to 100. Dockside was looking around like $80. Yeah.
And the question that comes to everyone's mind is why now?
Yeah, like... And... God, I don't know if there ever would have been a good time to ban such expensive cards, but in the week... Actually, like starting on Monday the 23rd, and that whole last week, like the whole couple last weeks, it's been a few people like saying, like some pretty big voices, and like some people saying like, good, I'm glad these cards got banned. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing for the health of the format. And I think we both agree that it is too. Like, these are not cards that I think lead to very good games unless you're specifically trying to play like competitive or like high power games. But they're just so expensive that a lot of people lost a lot of money.
Yeah, and I guess my only I'm sympathetic to people that had these cards. I know I personally, put my cards on the table, I don't own a Mana Crypt, I don't own a Jeweled Lotus. I got 1 Dockside that I got in the pre-con it came from. I think, Eli, you're more unlucky in that sense. You got a couple Mana Crypts, a couple Docksides.
Yeah, well, luck is it balances out, because I had my 2 Mana Crypts as a result of I bought a mystery booster box when it came out, and then I also was in an event where they were giving away mystery booster packs. We did like a pre-release type thing at our game store pre-COVID, and from my prize packs I got a Mana Crypt, and from the box, I got a Mana
So
Crypt.
you opened your Mana Crypts at least.
Yeah, and I had another Mana Crypt at one point that I just like traded up to. I had 3 Docksides, 2 of which I bought the Precon for on a sale.
Yep.
So it was very cheap, and then my 3rd Dockside I traded a friend for, so I'm not really out like any money.
You didn't buy them at like their peak or anything like that, so it's not as bad.
It doesn't feel that bad. It still kind of sucks because one thing like I know Josh kind of touched on this on the Command Zone episode where they talked about this. One nice thing about Magic that I had always thought too is like if I get into an emergency or like I really need some money, like I could sell the cards and maybe like get something back for them. Like that'd be nice to just have. But I never really saw Magic as much of an investment. But that's, some people did, and some people care more about that side of the game and did actually spend a lot of money on these cards.
And this change does kind of bring into question for some people, I've definitely seen some reactions online of like, I'm just not going to buy any card that's worth more than however much money. I'm just going to proxy them all, and I don't have trust in the format anymore. I don't have trust in spending money on cards. And, I see where they're coming from to some extent, at least. I do want to say, though, if you had to ask me, or probably most enfranchised players, what are the most powerful cards in the format that maybe have a chance of getting banned? I mean, I guess you would think of like some of the toxic cards, like you'd be like, oh yeah, maybe they'll ban like Armageddon or something because it's toxic. But in terms of like the strongest like big power cards that are whatever, I think Dockside is the first one that comes to my mind as a card that you maybe should or would be banned. So there's a little bit of a sentiment of like maybe you should have had some thought that it could be banned, but that argument doesn't really hold up super well when you think of just how long they went having it not banned. Like, Eli, you and I were talking, for years about how Dockside, should or is going to be banned, or it should be. And the rules committee has, the late Sheldon Menery and other people have constantly saying, no, this isn't, we're not going to do it.
Like they mentioned in the ban announcement from the 23rd, they always had this idea of Dockside. It's not that bad because it scales with like the level of play you're at. Like it's like, oh, it's not that bad unless you're playing like higher power where like there's more mana rocks and more things out. But like I've always disagreed with that because like I said, like I think Dockside is like pretty good even if you're just getting like 3 treasures off of it.
Yeah.
And it's good at like every level of play because like it's not like your opponents are playing greedy if they've got like
a mana rock
or 2 or like a mana rock and like an enchantment in play. And you're like, oh, you need to be punished for having that, so I'm going to play my Dockside as like a...
Yeah, it's not like they're playing like no basic lands in their deck kind of greedy. They're just playing Magic as normal. They're just playing cards that they would play.
Yeah, and Dockside is the number one that I think people had been talking about for years, and like you said, maybe people could have thought like, oh, if they're going to ban a card, it would be Dockside Extortionist. But
they didn't do it years, for so long.
The bannings had come and gone, and they had never banned the Dockside. Like, so it became like kind of a meme between us. But like I had a couple of like medium to like higher power decks like that. I usually would only play like Dockside in my higher power decks, but I had one in my like token like populating deck, and it was I was really considering like taking it out, but I would keep it in, and anytime I would play it, I would have to like kind of like do like this like shitty joke of like, oh well, the rules committee says it's just fine. This is not a toxic. This isn't even that. Yeah, it's not good enough. Like
knowing full well that it is being toxic.
Yeah, kind of like throwing a little shade, like kind of making fun of them a little bit. As much as I have a lot of respect for the rules committee, but I was just thought if there was ever a card that needed to be banned, it was definitely Dockside, and they didn't ban it. So what does that tell you? Like how they're going to manage the ban list? They're going to default to Rule 0, and they're not going to ban Dockside. Like I bet a friend. I think it was a year or 2 ago. We made a bet by the end of the year. I bet that they would not ban Dockside because I made that bet thinking, well, that's a bet that I win either way. Either the format is healthier and they ban a toxic card, or I get to play with my card. And then we also like put like a booster pack on it. So like I won a pack for that because the card wasn't banned that entire year.
Yeah.
And then I think another year went.
Yeah.
And it wasn't banned. So when that happens, like, what else can you think aside from it's just never going to happen? Because nothing's really that much has changed.
Especially, it's kind of blackpilling, in the sense that, you know, you have this card that feels pretty toxic. I know I'm just kind of saying that, so I'm not really giving an argument for why it's toxic, but just follow me for a minute. It feels like it's a, you know, really strong card. It's ban worthy. It's on that power level, and then it doesn't get banned for so long that, you know, it seems like it's fine. And then you start playing against people. Everyone's playing Dockside, or maybe not everyone, but you're playing against it enough where at some point you're like, okay, I guess this is just what Commander is now. I need to start putting in these cards in my decks, and you're kind of like getting that power creep, like Commander. What, like your Commander group, like people you play with, that power creep that goes up. You're like
arms race.
Yeah, your arms race. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. And, you know, you're like, okay, I guess I get these kind of powerful cards because that's what we got to do in the format. You know, that's what the format is. And then now we're kind of getting that, like, actually, you were right all along. This isn't what the format is. This isn't what we want it to be, as the rules committee seems to be saying. And now you're left holding the bag, you know, after the cards have been banned and you committed to them. So it is a little bit. So, you know, like the argument I made earlier about how, you know, you should see this coming. Well, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to say that, honestly, with the time we've seen. And I think Dockside is the most obvious thing you can say here, but you can probably make some similar arguments about Mana Crypt, and maybe I'm not sure how I feel about which one deserves to be banned more. I might say that Mana Crypt is potentially more unhealthy than Dockside, but I might be wrong about that. I'm not sure if you agree with that or not, Eli. But
yeah, I think for the longest time, the weird thing maybe keeping Mana Crypt in check was just, and Jewel Lotus too,
was the price.
It's just the price. Like, I mean, Dockside is a little bit cheaper than Jewel Lotus, but like when you go from like $7, like, I mean, the price has crept up and down like over like the years with like Dockside. Jewel Lotus has always been around like $100, like since it came out, because it's been reprinted very infrequently, as was Dockside, and also at Mythic Rare. Whereas like Mana Crypt is super premium, like that's way harder to get.
Yes,
and, like,
you could argue that Dockside and Jewel Lotus are like prohibitively expensive, and you might get a little bit of pushback of being like, well, maybe you can save up, you know, if you're not, you know, whatever. You could maybe convince a Commander player that you really should pick up a Dockside one day. But that gets even harder for Mana Crypt. I mean, $200 for a card does seem like it fits the prohibitively expensive category. I can afford a Mana Crypt if I want to buy one, but I never bought a Mana Crypt for a combination of, you know, it wasn't the kind of, you know, Commander I was always trying to play, but also I'm sure there would have been a deck that I would have put a Mana Crypt in, you know, if I was trying to make like a higher end kind of deck to play with other higher end decks. I probably would have bought a Mana Crypt and played it if it was, you know, less expensive. So,
seems like you may have had some insider information.
Yeah, Olivia told me.
Man, how do you feel about all that stuff, Spencer? The the kind of insider trading, like accusations.
I think there is no evidence that I've seen that the rules committee did any insider trading. We can't know if they sold any cards beforehand. I trust them that they wouldn't have. And I don't see any evidence to suggest that they did.
They notably did not consult or tell the Commander Advisory Group about the cards they were going to ban because of their concerns selling cards early.
How many people are on the Commander Advisory Group? Is it around 10? Or is there more?
Oh, I want to say it's around 10.
10? I know Josh Lee Kwai left the Commander Advisory Group, and I didn't watch he hadn't said a lot about it, but one of the reasons that I would expect that to be is that it seems pretty offensive that you have a group of people volunteering their time, the Commander Advisory Group, to help you maintain the format, and you don't even trust them. You trust them enough to work with them and get information from them, but you don't trust them enough to not you know, do insider trading, which in other contexts besides this would be a crime.
Yeah, that was the vibe I got from the Command Zone video, because Josh didn't give a specific reason, because this is the sort of thing like when you're already like dealing with so much
you don't need to.
anger
no one
and
needs
vitriol,
to...
and he wouldn't want to like say anything that like sends any more hatred or gets people more mad at the rules committee. But like it seemed to me mostly like he was just maybe a little offended at the implication that they couldn't be trusted. Because
isn't that their whole purpose of existing, is to give perspectives and advise the rules committee? And if they're not even if they're not being even talking to them about it for what would probably be the largest change in Commander, that seems kind of like a kick in the balls there, or kick in the teeth if you prefer.
Yeah, on the FAQ about the bannings that the rules committee put out, when asked about why they didn't consult the CAG, they said that they had kind of had discussions about like fast mana in general, and they felt like they already like knew the opinions of the Commander Advisory Group on this. But I think it's safe to say, post the banning decision, the fact that they banned 3 very expensive cards,
that makes a difference, right? The price.
Yeah, that makes a big... I mean, like the size, because like we kind of talked about this earlier, like the Commander format is incredibly stable. Like you can buy some really expensive cards, and you know that at worst, let's look back on like the last like 5 or 6 years of the Commander format. When they do a ban announcement, the last one they did was like 3 years ago. I might be off on the dates here, but it was they banned Golos and they unbanned Worldfire. So that's one ban, 1 card ban, 1 card unban. Before that, they banned...
was it the Painter's Servant?
I think it was
Iona?
At the same time they banned Iona and Hull Breacher at the same time.
And unbanned Painter's Servant.
And they unbanned Painter's Servant. And so those are the biggest things that they've done, like, since I moved back to Fargo.
And then before that, it was... I think it was Lutri, and then it was
Lutri. Oh no, yeah, that was also banned. I forget
that
like,
one. That one, like
we don't like think about that much because like that was like in all those like around like 20.
Then it was I am the victim of the ire of the rules committee, because the one before that was what's the name of the card?
Paradox
Engine, and I have a masterpiece Paradox Engine that is now worth like $10. So screw you, rules committee. But yeah, so then it's that card, Paradox Engine, and then is it Prophet of Krufix before that? It might be. That was when I started playing the game over 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a pretty old one. So I think there's been changes
more.
Like in there, but like it's very what we're getting at is it's very infrequent that they do bannings, and when they do bannings,
they're not a lot.
I don't know if there's been like a 4-card banning. The timing of this is funny because around a month or two ago, or whenever the last time they had an announcement was, they made no changes and they alluded to their Silver Border project.
Yeah.
Big content creators such as Saffron Olive made a lot of like posts around that time being like, what does the rules committee even do? What's the purpose of the rules committee? Why do we need them? Well, they did something. They made a change.
Be careful what you ask for, right? What you wish for.
Just funny timing there. Like there's no way that they didn't have this planned ahead of time, or they did this in response to those posts and people talking about it. But like, just very, very ironic.
Yeah, I want to before I talk about my overall thoughts on the bannings, I just want to, because we didn't really touch on Jeweled Lotus at all. I want to say that, Mana Crypt, so for all these cards, Mana Crypt, very old card, printed in, I don't know what set it was in, but it was a very early set of the game, different time, sure, whatever, right? Dockside Extortionist, I think you might be able to argue that it wasn't a mistake. I think it deserves to be banned, but I don't know if it was a big design mistake necessarily. I think Jeweled Lotus is a design mistake. I think Jeweled Lotus is... I don't think it's as powerful necessarily as the other two.
Josh Lee agrees with you.
Really?
He was doing playtesting for Commander Legends with Wizards, and he told them not to make it.
Yeah.
And then they made it.
Yeah, so I do think that Dockside / Mana Crypt might be more powerful than Jeweled Lotus. Maybe I'm not convinced. I'm not 100%, but let's just say that I do think Jeweled Lotus personally offends me more. I think that Jeweled Lotus is relatively toxic, and I've been on the record here saying that I think it is bad gameplay.
Do you think it's maybe the grossest example of like powered magic cards like targeted specifically for Commander?
I think it's Wizards failing to understand what makes Commander fun and failing in their design of a for Commander card. Yeah, I think so. So I just wanted to rant for a moment about Jeweled Lotus. Do you have any comments you want to make on that? Good riddance, I think.
Yeah, so like we said earlier, I own 3 Docksides, 2 Mana Crypts. Jeweled Lotus, aside from like my one like very high-powered commander deck, like wasn't a card that I ever thought I would want to own because it's not the type of card that like, I don't know, it's just it doesn't appeal to me, and like I said, it just seems like the grossest like what if most powerful cards in Magic but for Commander, like is that like a good design? Like,
not most of the time, no.
Like Mana Crypt is also gross and like just powerful, but like that wasn't made for Commander in a for Commander
What
product.
if we made Ancestral Recall, but it said draw a card for each opponent you have, 1 blue mana, Like
yeah.
Obviously that would. It's not. I'm not trying to compare that to Jeweled Lotus necessarily. There's more restrictions. There's a restriction on Jeweled Lotus.
Personally, I wouldn't play it.
Yeah, if you guys remember that, that was some Twitter drama a year ago. Don't worry, that's an inside joke. If you know, you know. If you know, post in the comments. You're a real one. But sorry, I interrupted you. Do you have anything more you want to say about Jeweled Lotus?
Oh, yeah, it's just not something that you would want to see again. Like, I mean, even Dockside Extortionist, like, Dockside is maybe like, and maybe this is a stupid statement because, like I said, I'm very easy to please. I think it's good even when it's not that good, but it's not like Dockside was designed in a way that was just like stupid, like obvious, like
yeah.
And when Dockside is broken, and it often is, like, I mean, it's very good on its own. Would you say that it's necessarily like broken on its own, or like it's like because it? I mean, it's sometimes just like 2 mana, like get 10 mana, then it's broken. But like there's situations where like Dockside isn't that like game breaking unless you're already like doing like kind of nutty stuff with it. Like if you're playing it in like a weird blink deck or like reanimate or using it for like combos, like you could. I find it easier to believe that you could put Dockside in your deck, and that could be like a quote like bad deck rather than like maybe Jewel. I mean, you could do the same thing with Jeweled Lotus probably, but like I feel like Jeweled Lotus is more like you're playing it with like a broken commander.
You could even argue that. I mean, I'm not sure if I would agree with this, but you could argue that spending 2 mana to make 10 mana on turn maybe 6 or something, right, isn't as good as making 3 mana for 0 mana on 1, right? You could argue that. I'm not sure.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
Because, if you use Jeweled Lotus to, Lotus into some commander that is like a mana generating commander, by that time that, your Dockside would come out, maybe you've made much more than that, in the acceleration that you were gaining in the early game, right? So I don't know. I think Jeweled Lotus. I think Dockside is a problem and overpowered. But with the exception of when you have a really early Dockside go off and be crazy, it's usually at the point that someone Docksides to win. The other players have had opportunities in the game to do other similar broken-ish things. Depending on what they're drawing. But I think that Jeweled Lotus is not gross. Like it disgusts me. Like I don't like it. It's ew. But
it's a beloved card, Spencer.
Yeah, I don't really buy that. This reminds me of. I'm not trying to be super hateful or anything, but I remember a year or two ago listening to some random EDH Rec cast video, or sorry, MTG Goldfish podcast with Joey. And Joey saying, EDH Rec. Yeah, I got myself mixed up for a second. Yeah, Joey Schultz, and him talking about how fun and and awesome Gaia's Cradle was, and how it made for great experiences and stories. You know, someone going off with a Gaia's Cradle, making 10 mana or something, and it's that level. Like I get that same reaction to that as I do to a card like I don't know Joey's opinions, but I think they've maybe expressed similar things about Jeweled Lotus, about how it's really fun, you know, and it's great. And I don't really vibe with that personally. But that's enough being hateful about that.
Watch out, Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah.
Coming for you next.
That'd be another expensive one. That'd be a big ban.
Dude, if they had this level of like outcry and like hatred because of the price point of these cards,
yeah,
and they responded by the next ban announcement,
yeah,
banning what might actually be like short of like Time Twister, the most expensive card in Commander.
Tabernacle.
Like that would how based would that be?
Well, at least Gaia's Cradle is playable in like Legacy Elves and stuff. I think that's it's a card that's played in other formats, but it probably would see a significant hit, right? Actually, is it a reserve list card? No, right?
I believe it is.
Okay, but they printed it in a newer frame, right? Am I mistaken about that?
I don't think so.
Okay. I know they had like a weird reserve list thing with some cards, but they printed them in like a collection or something.
Yeah. Sometimes they just ignore it.
Sometimes that one time they just ignored it. Yeah. So I get confused. But okay, so I want to we've talked a lot. I want to say that now Eli and I probably will disagree a little bit here, or maybe we won't, but I think my overall opinions on the ban lists is I am net positive on the ban list. I think it's better for the format, and I think that better for the format, that net utility trumps the negative utility of the financial aspects and the trust aspects. I think the gameplay is better. Eli, do you agree or disagree with that?
I think if we were ignoring the financial aspect of this, it would just be totally positive because, well, for the most part, positive. I mean, there's people who do like to play these cards casually, but I don't like leaning on Rule 0. I don't like that that's something that has to be done with Commander, and you can make a pretty good argument, and this is still going to happen. Pub stomping is still going to happen. People are still going to have power level issues because there's always going to be like a next most powerful card. There's still disgusting things you can do in the format. There's still really super strong cards, but these were cards that could pretty easily show up in decks of a power level that like they kind of maybe didn't belong in.
Yeah.
Which could lead to
very
the occasional
games.
Bad experience and hurt feelings and misunderstandings. Whereas like, I mean, that's still something that can happen, but like these were just like enabler cards of like really unfun situations.
And people would, I feel like I've come in, Eli and I, we don't have huge problems with proxying, that's generally okay. But something hits different when you come up with people and they just like proxying multiple pieces of fast mana in their deck, and then they're, it's kind of like your casual game. And it hits me different, okay? That's all.
Yeah.
At least if you had the card, for some reason, I guess I would for some reason feel a little better, but...
Yeah, I am, however, very sympathetic to people. I mean, I have a level of sympathy to, like, investors and, like, collectors because, yeah, it sucks to lose a lot of money, but when you're treating something like this, like a business or an investment, you also take on risks.
Yeah.
I don't think it feels like they're losing less money, but the player who's maybe like not super well off but still loves the game, who saves up or like trades up for one of these expensive cards,
especially a newer player maybe that thinks they need it to compete.
Yeah, like if you're playing at the game store and you just deal with people who like don't understand the social aspect of the game that well, or like they don't care about like pub stomping people or like playing super powerful decks, and then like a new player's like, oh man, I really want to play, or they just like think it's like a cool card, like
they're like just getting into the game and they're really digging it, they're really kind of get invested. I'm like, I can make this investment, it's not like it's gonna go down.
There's a lot of Magic players that like
I can sell it if I want.
As much as we could victim blame, like they're just not very good with money, so they're gonna spend a lot of money on things that like maybe aren't the greatest decision. Like people like ask sometimes, like I think I've had this happen at the store where somebody's like, oh man, should like I buy like a dockside, or should I buy like this expensive card to like make my deck better? And I'm like, no, you should probably buy like an entire deck's worth of cards rather than that one. Like you could buy like so many other things that would make a bigger impact.
Like, oh no, I'm thinking, should I buy a Mana Crypt, or should I buy like the should I buy the Eldrazi Precon? You know,
and it feels cool to buy those cards, but like people would like trade up or save up for those cards, and especially if they don't have a ton of money to throw around on their hobbies, and that happened, and then the card got banned. I feel really bad for that person. So this whole thing kind of had me asking the question, like, post this ban and like this kind of shake up to like Commander going from like a super stable format to being kind of volatile now, or seemingly volatile. Like, I don't know if they're going to do something like this again, like hopefully not for a while. What's like the most money you think would be reasonable for a Commander player to spend on like a single powerful card where you can make a pretty good argument that it might get banned? Like, so what's the price of like Rhystic Study? Probably around like 30
bucks around. So do we think, so am I factoring in a Commander player buying one copy, or am I factoring in maybe they're going to buy a play set so they can have them in a bunch of decks? What are you thinking here?
I'm thinking like, even if I'm just going to buy like one card, like what's the most expensive a card could be? Rhystic's like $40. Jeez.
Oh, it was 30 last time I looked at it. I have one copy I've had for a while. Probably bought it for 20 back in the day, but
yeah, there's different versions of it here still. But oh lord,
yeah, somewhere. Oh, there's one for 30. There's one for 30 on the right there. Okay, but yeah, somewhere between 30 and $40. Oh wait, there's one for 20. Oh no, that's a mislisting. Okay, so my perspective on this, my thought, this is a hard question to answer. My intuition tells me the max that I'd be willing to spend, or maybe I would expect someone to be able to spend on a card and be worth, is like the price of like the good Sword ofs maybe back in the day. So I think some of those were around $50 maybe dollars, something like that, 50 or 60 for like a Feast and Famine or something, or like what Doubling Season was like $50, right? So maybe 50 is like, but I don't buy those cards. Like I tend to not buy the $50 Magic cards just because like I don't need to. Like I can do other things. I'm able to. I don't mind spending money on Magic cards. That's fine, right? Like I can buy cards, but I feel like I can get a lot more out of my money if I just don't. But yeah, maybe that's too much. Do you think that's too much?
I'm just wondering, like, myself personally, like post this banning, like
how can you convince yourself?
I don't, now that there's the fact that like I just feel like I can't know like what's gonna be banned and like when it's gonna be banned. Like
yeah.
I just don't know, like, because I'm kind of like
$20
I'm not
what?
super well off. Like, I just don't think I ever will trade up for or like buy a Commander card if it's like over $20.
Yeah.
And there's like, because that's what I've been thinking about, Spencer, is like, what card should I maybe like? Should I go like the proxy route now? Should I sell off my cards? Because like, what if Smothering Tithe gets banned in Commander? Like,
you probably have like 5-6 copies of that card.
Yeah,
right?
like, and it's not like Mana Crypt expensive, but I'm looking at right now, like averages like between like $20 and $30, like
depending on the printing. Yeah.
Or like, what about like my Deflecting Swats? Like I own 2 of them. Like
that was like $60 like, or something, right?
The free spell cycle. I feel like you could make a really good argument that those are unhealthy for Commander, right?
I think they are, and I also think those generally, at least the counter spell and Deflecting Swat, are probably, I think, that's more than I thought. They reprinted a couple times, but I think the counterspell is quite expensive. But yeah, $30, $40, $50, something like that. It's hard to ask someone to buy those, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's not to say like every card. I'm just talking about cards where you could make like a genuine argument like that the format would be better off without them.
Sure. So you're thinking like expensive cards that are maybe unhealthy. Like how can you feel good buying those?
Yeah, the big names I threw out, like I saw people talking about Smothering Tithe and Rhystic Study, which I don't think
are toxic,
should be banned. Like, I mean, you could probably make a pretty good argument for like Rhystic Study. Like, I feel like if we were going by like my personal criteria for like what should be banned in Commander, that might be one of them. But like that's not how they've gone about banning cards.
They're not banning cards. They're,
that when the bannings happen, like we were talking about this in our personal like Discord, and you said like something like these 3 cards like were on my mind of like the cards that I think that you thought would would be banned, right, for like power level reasons.
Sure. Yeah.
To which I had to say, like, yeah, but when has the rules committee ever like
when is my mind ever?
Yeah,
been
whenever they ever thought about like Spencer Cook's reasons, because like these three cards.
No, you're right, because those have been cards that I've considered banning worthy for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah,
so.
and to see like a banning where like they banned 3 cards for exactly the same reasons. When the ban list, we had a podcast on this about like how the ban list works, and the reasons cards end up on the ban list it's rarely a consistent reason. Like it's not a consistent a big discussion point of these bannings has been the fact that they called out Sol Ring in their banning announcement, and they said pretty much Sol Ring is like these cards. It fits the exact criteria of like what these cards do. It is never getting banned because it's the signature card of the format. Everyone has a Sol Ring. And also, it's in every Commander Precon, so if you ban a card that's in every Commander Precon, it makes for some really awkward situations. Yeah. I'd recommend anyone interested in Magic history look up the Stoneforge Mystic banning in Standard of around like Scars of Mirrodin, like block time. Like, it was in a like game day, like, I don't know what they called them back then, but like pre-constructed like Standard deck.
Yeah.
And the card got banned from the format, but it was legal for you to play that deck like straight out the box if nothing in the deck list was changed.
I don't know if that came with a sideboard, but like essentially that exact 75 you could play Stoneforge in, so that they would see that you. I don't know. I wonder if it'd be like a legal thing or if it was just like a consideration for people that bought it. I'm not sure.
So the card was banned, but it was playable within that context. So if they banned Sol Ring. This even has me wondering with like Dockside Extortionists is like should there be like
right?
should there be a rule with like Dockside where like if you play the exact precon like it should be legal? Like
was it the Cycling Commander? No, it was the
flashback Savine, the Chronoplasm.
Savine,
yeah. So like with Sol Ring, if they ban Sol Ring, they would have to have a similar rule to that, right? Where they're like, oh, it's illegal in the format, but it's legal in like base precon, right?
But
like,
the whole concept is swapping out cards in a precon, right? Like that's the whole thing. Like, you upgrade
and
precon.
It's such an awkward rule too, like because it's so niche and like. So yeah, I just don't think a Sol Ring ban would ever. One thing we talked about before, coming over here, like I asked the question, like for the sake of like the financial side of things, like I'd have to think more about the numbers, and these are definitely going to be skewed and wrong. But like from like a utility standpoint, like of like net like harms, is it better to ban a $200 card that thousands of people own, or to ban a $2 card that like millions of people own?
Have 10 copies of.
Like what's the
which one is more money in the ether going
away?
Right,
like what would piss people off more? Like, do you think people would be like super pissed if they banned, like, because people are saying like, oh well, you got to ban Sol Ring now, like you got to be consistent, like you, and that's the number one thing you got to know about Commander and like the rules committee and like bannings in Commander. You don't dare ever ask for any type of consistency. You will not get it here. That's not what this is about.
That's not what we do.
Yeah, we don't do that here.
That's why we're a singleton format, no consistency.
Yeah, we don't believe in it.
Yeah, so it's
like the EDH takes upload schedule. Like no consistency here. We adhere to the spirit of the format, the philosophy.
I think that like you said, from a gameplay health standpoint, Sol Ring is a card that probably there's a very good argument for it to be not. It's clearly the best mana rock in the format, right, by probably a good margin. Now that the other cards are banned. You probably don't want a card that's pretty much strictly better than every 2 mana rock, Mm-hmm. But I acknowledge all that, I do not. I'm not in support of a Sol Ring ban. I don't think it'd be feasible. From I guess from a pure philosophical perspective, I guess I would support it, but it's not feasible. It's not going to happen. And I do think it is the face of Commander, like you were saying, like it is. Sol Ring kind of is Commander in some sense. Mana Crypt is not the face of Commander, even though
And in the banning announcement, they mentioned the aspect of like fast mana, where like multiplayer can regulate for that, like 3 people can team up. Now, I'm of the opinion that works. When you have, like, in your deck, you have, like, 1 Sol Ring.
Yeah, there's a Sol Ring. Not when you have 4 things.
When you're playing every fast mana piece, it's a little bit harder for people to 3v1. Like, like, when they have to... If they can get rid of one thing and put you back to, like, where they are at... Because, like, a good friend of ours, Jesse, You play a Soul Ring with Jesse, you almost don't want to keep that hand. Because he's always got...
You keep your Soul Ring in your hand.
It's a sure deal he's got the one piece of removal, right? Like, you know that. And that's a reasonable thing to expect from, like, 3 opponents, that one person's got one thing to deal with something.
Jesse's going to have the Return to Ravnica copy of Smelt. Or whatever,
Jesse's gonna have free, like, artifact destruction. He's gonna have Mog Salvage. He's gonna have Abolish. He's gonna have Force of Vigor, right? Is that
Force
the green
of Vigor,
one?
Yes.
He's gonna have all of them.
And he's gonna do it.
And yeah, he will do it. So, like, that, there's a Jesse can handle a Soul Ring, but with like Mana Crypt plus Jewel Lotus, like, you play like your Ward Commander on turn 1, like.
He's gonna have the Phyrexian counterspell for 1 mana cost spells.
He might.
Yeah, when you play your 3 or 4 mana Ward Commander on turn 1, not really much you can do about that.
Little hard to dig out from that one. So Soul Ring, yeah, I don't think Soul Ring needs to be banned. I mean, I get that frustration with like the inconsistency of the Commander ban list, but it's just like. If you're talking about that, you're incredibly new here. I'm sorry, that's kind of condescending to say, but like it's just not. It's not how they do things.
Let me shows you the ropes, kid. This is how we do things.
That's the frustrating thing about this banning to me, is just the fact that like it feels like the decisions were like this feels mean to say, but like they did it for like a reason that like would have made sense to like Spencer Cook, like it would have made sense to us. Like it's something that we like would, and so it's just like. It's a new direction. That's all I'm going to say, because like the last banning, like I talked about, they banned Golos, they unbanned Worldfire. That one blew my mind. That was the moment where I was like, I give up. I give up trying to think of like what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
This banning, it reminds me of as much as Hull Breacher needed to be banned. I believe it was the same banning, or it was around that time when they also banned Iona, Shield of Emeria. And the reasoning partially being that they wanted to unban Painter Servant. They thought that would be a combination that would lead to problems.
In what world, though?
But the Iona thing, Iona was nearly as old as, she was like a decade old at this point. She'd been out for a long time. And this just gives me similar vibes to that of like you could have known that these cards were like a problem for, like, especially Mana Crypt. Like, if that was going to be banned, that would have been banned years, like with Iona. When they banned Iona, it's like, it's come to our attention that people have been cheating this into play. It's like, what? Mana Crypt, it's come to our attention that fast mana leads to unhealthy games.
Oh, really?
That's okay.
That's crazy.
So it just feels like it's kind of coming out of nowhere.
I know they do signpost bans for Iona, or for cards like Iona, or whatever. They're like, oh, we think this is kind of unfun, whatever. But like you're able to do. There's other like easier to accomplish like stop your opponents from casting spells, or stopping some of your opponents from casting spells things to do. And this isn't really how they do ban lists, but just the thought like Karn, the 4 mana Karn, and like the ability, turning all of your opponent's lands into artifacts,
right,
or whatever,
Mycosynth Lattice
kind of stuff. Like I mean, that I guess that stops everyone from casting spells, so it's better. But
it also gets me think like unless like 3 of your opponents are on like the same color that you're shutting off with like Iona, like what's worse, like Iona on turn 1 or original Jin-Gitaxias like turn 1, and then your opponents have a max hand size of 0 and have to discard to 0 at the
we want to get rid of Iona because we want to bring back Painter Servant. It's like, is it really going to be that problematic if Iona and Painter Servant are in the same format? That's not more problematic than Mycosynth Lattice and one of the couple cards that stop. That's not more problematic than that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a tangent. It's just like the timing of this gave me like similar vibes,
flashbacks, to
when Iona got banned.
The last thing I want to mention on this banning thing before we move on, unless you have something else, is. We didn't really touch on it. We said we weren't going to touch on it, but the whole CEDH aspect, is there anything you want to say about that? Or should we move on? What do you think?
We've seen a lot of kind of uproar from the CEDH community, like, because this affects them more than casual for sure, because like there's a large portion of the casual community who's like kind of agreed via Rule 0 that we don't play these cards. Like, you just don't see them that often, whereas like these cards were CEDH staples, like certainly. And Dockside Extortionist, I mean, like I said, it was probably the strongest red card. I think there's CEDH players that would say stuff like it was one of the things that kept red like kind of viable.
I've heard
and
that.
I might be misspeaking there, I might be misquoting them, but like certainly these cards affect a lot.
And another thing I've heard that I I've heard from a lot of sources, so I hesitate to disagree as someone who doesn't play CDH, but I've heard a lot of people saying that Rograk and Silas Ren, I believe, is like is it that the commander Silas Ren, right?
Yes.
Yeah. This quote unquote Rogue Psy CDH deck is by far the best deck in the format, and specifically it is even better compared to these other decks after this banning because I guess it doesn't need to make use of Jeweled Lotus or something. I think the arguments that I heard about it weren't great. I don't obviously not a CDH player. Take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm sure that Silas Ren or Rograk Silas Ren decks also benefited a lot from cards like Mana Crypt and Dox Extortionist. I understand that you're able to play other fast mana cards off of your 0 mana commander with like Jessica's Will and stuff, and the free counterspell, free redirects. I understand that. I think that maybe there were a couple other cards you might play that maybe you sacrifice a creature to gain mana or something as like a mana source. But whatever. The point is, I don't buy that. Like, these were 3 cards that the other decks needed to keep up with this Silas Ren and Rograk deck. I think that was people coping with fringe CDH decks that maybe, I'm sure there's plenty of other CDH decks that are that you can play. But that's my rant about CDH power level from someone who doesn't play CDH. So take that with a grain of salt.
I didn't see that much about specific decks, but I saw a few people posting about how
I saw
it's a pretty big hit to Godo, Bandit Warlord.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
But
dude, I saw like several people being like, Rogue Psy is now the best deck by far. It already was. They're ruining the CDH metagame. And I don't want to. So how hard do I want to come against CDH right now? I'm trying to think. Eli, I think we gotta.
I think we're in a spot right now to go off on CDH. So
I think we might
just do it.
Yeah, I think there may be a future CDH dedicated episode that we'll have to make, but I think at this point, I think I'm in favor of CDH getting out of the format. Leave. Go be somewhere else. Go make your own rules and leave. You're affecting the format negatively, in my opinion, to a casual player.
Yeah, there's a few things that I want. So I get that to some people when they're talking about CEDH, competitive EDH, they don't mean like it's actually like competitive, like a tournament format. They're playing it like just like the highest level of like EDH. But if you're a competitive format, you're using the ban list of a format that notably does not ever want to ban things for a competitive nature. Like, that's not what they care about. It's the ban list doesn't work like that. And so it's never going to make CDH players happy.
Yeah.
What's on the ban list? They had to beg the rules committee years ago to ban the card Flash. That was one of the bannings I forgot over the last few years. Because that one sticks out as one that like casual players weren't. There were no casual players asking for that card to be banned.
Exactly.
That was a CDH only thing, and the rules committee notably said at the time, this is a one-time thing. We're never taking you guys like this into account again because we were doing this for the casual play experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got that, and now CDH players complaining about that these cards have been banned. It's kind of just like a careful what you wish for. Like, what do you expect? Like, this is not the commander ban list is never going to cater to what you want. So why do you want this? Like, why do you want to be in the same format if you've got to use a ban list that's never gonna like cater to the type of experience that you're looking for?
And I think this is maybe a little bit harsh, so I'll caveat that by saying this is harsh, and I realize that. I think CEDH, the presence of CEDH seems to potentially do some harm to the casual CEDH or casual commander existence. I feel like us being together is causing both of us problems.
Have you witnessed or are you aware of like some casual commander players like making power level comparisons about their casual deck and like referencing CEDH?
Yes.
That's like the bar that they should like strive to.
This isn't like a tiered CEDH deck, so I'm gonna this is appropriate or this card is not.
Well, they feel like inadequate. Like I think sometimes because their deck like isn't like able to compete with CEDH decks because like CEDH being part of the format and this is one other thing that I think I've said before on this podcast is like if CDH decks are not ever meant, and CDH players agree with this, so I don't know why this is like the splitting the format is an issue. the decks are not ever meant to be played. And you know,
like played against each other, not casual and CDH decks aren't meant to be played against each other.
Yeah, a casual Commander deck is not meant to be in the same game as a competitive EDH deck, and I think CDH players would agree with that for the most part. Like, I think I have like talked to some people who slightly disagree with that. Like, well, a high power regular Commander deck could play with it. And it's like, yeah, but okay, that's like a whole conversation those people have to have. It's not like somebody's bringing their CDH deck, or they should be bringing it to like casual, like sit down and play with like Stranger's Commander Night.
It's like, oh, I'm going to sit into the CDH pod and I've just bringing my best deck and maybe I can sit with you guys. Maybe. Yeah,
you would know what you're going in, but like it's
a different mindset.
I think it's easier, it's less likely that happens than somebody is aware of CDH and knows CDH decks, and they bring that deck to play specifically with casual players because they know that it's stronger than those decks. And they might not be like specifically trying to pub stomp, but they are, just because they're like, well, it's the same format. Like, there's nothing, there's no rules against it.
I'm just bringing my Crick deck. You know, it's fine.
These are people who like don't know what Rule Zero is, or like they don't care because like, well, it's legal, or like, oh, they should just like format. You should just get good, or you should just make a better deck, or like, oh, my thing, it dies to removal. So like, there's all these like arguments or like reasons like why they might not understand what they're doing is like any type of wrong, but like,
yeah,
wouldn't it just be easier if we could ban more cards that are like that lead to bad casual play experiences and not worry about
the consequences,
repercussions
on
in
the CDH
community? And wouldn't it be nicer for you guys too to not have to worry that the Commander Rules Committee is just going to ban some weird random card that like what's the next, like, what if they did ban like Rhystic Study? Maybe they would like that.
What if they ban the deck out win condition cards or something?
Yeah.
Right?
What if they ban Mystic Remore? What if they ban every free counter spell because that doesn't lead to good casual play experiences? Like,
yeah, I'm sure that wouldn't reflect well on CDH, but I do feel like I have to now. As much as I've been ragging on CDH, I have to give the slightest of defense for why splitting might be a bad idea, and that is. As you get closer and closer to the meeting point, between strong casual and CDH, the lines maybe get blurred, and you start to think, well, what's the difference between my deck and a CDH deck? How do I categorize it? And I think this was an opinion that I used to have several years ago. I think I was more in the camp of, it's the same format. It gets, pretty weird. Like if I just take like what makes my deck CDH versus like strong power. It's not easy to, you can't, just because you can't put this is actually a common fallacy. Just because you can't draw the line doesn't mean it's not there. That's or doesn't mean you can't tell when you're over it, I suppose. And yeah, I don't have the perfect answer for that, but at this point, I think I would certainly be in favor of a CDH splintering off. Also, you guys can ban your own cards that you think are toxic as well. For, if there's cards that you think don't lead to good play experiences for CDH, you can ban those. Yeah,
and especially as CDH has grown more popular, it's moving into the era of what is sometimes referred to as TEDH, Tournament EDH.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be doing tournaments and actual competitive events, wouldn't it be nice, because that's one way that you can actually like kind of get a grasp on like like something like a metagame or like results, like tournament like you have something to look at, and that would make it
easy, I would think, banning
decisions, easier to like make those decisions.
You could curate a competitive format if you wanted to.
Yeah, because that's usually what a ban list is for the health of competitive play.
And also, we didn't really talk about this earlier, but there sounds like there may have been some sort of like silver border concerns or things with Magic, with Commander. They've got their Acorn and non-Acorn cards that are like pushing like attraction, stuff like that push the edges of what should be allowed in Commander. I'm not sure what the CDH community's opinion on that. I know they do play. I know a powerful card in CDH is the Blank Goblin, because you can play just the right number of things to make it like a powerful card. I don't remember what it does, but anyway, if you wanted to, you could get rid of some of the cringe uncards in your format. Yeah, the Infinity Goblin. I don't remember what they did with it, but there was some strong stuff. I think Eli's looking up the Blank Goblin to remember what the deal is with that. But I'm pretty sure that was in the Rogue Silas decks I was looking at.
You're just reminding me of the fact that
that this card exists.
That there's legal.
Oh yeah, stickers. That's what it was.
Cards are.
Yeah, you have to have like your sticker sheets, your sticker sheet that you choose, so you can have. I don't remember what it does. I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember what the good thing about it was. But enough about ranting about CEDH. If you're a CDH player, I don't automatically hate you. It's just a higher likelihood that I will. But you wanna? We've been talking about these ban lists for a while.
Let us know what you guys think. If you can give me a really compelling argument,
we're open
for
to
why CEDH players want to like stay in Commander. And I've heard the argument of, well, we want to play Commander just like the strongest possible version of Commander. I'm not particularly sold on that argument, personally. Like maybe if there's some way I'm misunderstanding that, but like,
I don't want you.
if that's what you want, then you have to be okay with every ban decision like this. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just how it's going to be. So, yeah, you can't expect any more flash bans, and you can't expect that they won't ban out powered cards and fast mana. So I guess the backlash to this ban decision was numerous, to say the least. It was very loud
and continuous as well. It seemed
I was looking at the replies to the tweets from the rules committee, and I think it was around 800 responses to each of the announcements. Just crazy numbers.
You know, and there were a lot of people that were happy with the announcements. Not to say that it was one-sided like negativity.
Happy people are quieter than angry people.
Certainly,
as a rule.
And one consequence of this ban decision that it seems like I'm speculating. It seems like the rules committee wasn't fully 100% prepared for the amount of vitriol that they received from the community. I think there were reports of, lots of death threats, lots of toxicity.
Yeah, one thing that this is kind of this is more a theory, but like I feel like one thing that's always protected the rules committee from vitriol and backlash was the ignorance of the player base. In the week after these bannings, you'll see people say stuff like, even notably like Tim Pool, came out.
Oh, like, he had the big tweet,
and he was blaming for the bans
Wizards
WotC.
of the Coast, yeah.
So people will see these things happen and they'll say, "Oh, look what WotC did." Like, I've even had friends that like they're misspeaking or like they're misunderstanding, and they'll say like, "Oh, look what WotC did." And the Commander Rules Committee, back in the day, we had it was kind of a meme in the community. We had Sheldon Menery, and God rest his soul, but Sheldon was the most forward-facing member of the Commander Rules Committee, and people knew Sheldon. They knew the name. And they maybe didn't know a lot about him, but they knew the name Sheldon. They knew there was a guy named Sheldon that they could blame for every problem with Commander, and they would. The other members of the Rules Committee, Scott, Gavin, forgetting the other guy's name, but anyways, the Rules Committee members, they're not super, like, it's not like they're hiding or anything. It's just people didn't know. They don't have a lot of name recognition.
Toby
Elliott. Toby Elliott, yeah. So Toby, Scott, and Gavin, like, they were on there, and like they had been on there for a long time, but they're not very prominent, like, people like, they don't, like, do a lot of stuff aside, like, they do things, but, like, people didn't know their names. And now, post Sheldon, like, they had brought on,
Jim
Lepage, and, if I'm saying that right, and Olivia Gober-Hicks, two pretty notable Commander content creators.
Yeah.
Olivia, especially, Commander at Home is rivaling, like, Tolarian Community College and Command Zone
is the
for, like, Commander game. Like,
yeah,
these people know their names
and their faces, and they know their personalities. They know them as people. And I know you were saying this earlier. Sheldon really was a tank, and by that what I mean is he tanked all of the hate, and he dealt with it all. He dealt with it, and he kept moving, and that was I'd say that was very, very admirable.
Yeah,
and I don't know if the other Commander Rules Committee people realize just how hard that might be to tank with Sheldon gone.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out, not a rules committee member, but Shivam
Shivam.
also.
Yeah, tanks a lot.
Because Sheldon and Shivam, what they would, what they did and what Shivam does is they make it. They're very like vocal, and they will go out and they love interacting with people.
On
they're
Twitter and
they're,
Discord.
They're people, and they would go out of their way to talk to people and let their opinion, and they would wear their hearts on their sleeves and make it very easy for people to single them out as, like the problems with, like they would go to these, like Shivam still does this, like he, and nothing will, it feels like nothing will ever break him, but like
he's unbreakable.
He's like I said, he's a tank, like he's the tank of the community, and like, and they're used to it, like, and
they've
Sheldon
got high level armor. They're ready to tank.
And that's not to say that Jim and Olivia and like the rules committee members don't, because like
I'm sure they've received a lot of hate in the past as well.
You can have a thick skin, but like a thick skin it's still just thick. It can still break, and when you're dealing with death threats and constant harassment, like because shortly after the ban announcement, I think there was a Commander at Home video that like went live like after that. And for you to put out something like unrelated to the bannings or like do this kind of content, and then have to look and like see like that a good chunk of the comment section is people calling you, God knows what. I think they did a pretty good job of like, because you can delete comments and like trimming that stuff back, because like she shouldn't have to deal with that. But that's.
Do you remember when the I Hate Your Deck controversy happened with? They put out, they had like
with Joe's stuff, or
no, with
Lynch's
with Michael David Lynch, right?
Yeah,
with his stuff. And I think the comments on those videos were pretty. I think they put up another video after that or something, and it's a similar situation to that where like something crazy happens and then you put out your content as normal, and and comments are not looking good.
And this is a situation where people lost a lot of money. So I understand people being
personal investment, right?
Yeah, and it's a very upsetting thing, and people had pretty good reason to be upset, but it was a lot. Mm-hmm. And so what we're getting to is that the Commander Rules Committee, as of yesterday, September 30th, they have handed over control of the Commander, because like this was ultimately, for what they were putting up with, it's a thankless job and
volunteer work, no money.
What's the amount of harassment you would put up with for a volunteer position? So they have officially, and this is something that the people who have complained and hated, this is something that they, I think, kind of wanted. They're not a monolith, these people, so like some people would never want this, and some people would always say stuff like, oh, like why shouldn't Wizards just take over? Like, you guys are such idiots, like you wouldn't.
Or maybe even they'd say, oh, we should get rid of these guys and put new guys in charge or something.
Yeah,
right?
Like who voted for you, like whatever. Yeah. And so now officially Wizards is going to be managing the Commander format and the Commander ban list in cooperation with the existing Rules Committee members and a committee of other people, such as what was on the Commander Advisory Group.
Yeah,
so that's not necessarily going away. That's one thing that I was kind of bummed about to hear when I heard about this.
Yeah, the CAG was cool. Also, Wizards has been reaching out to EDH Takes for advice on how to handle the format.
Yeah, and we said those cards got to go. You got to tell the Rules Committee.
Yeah.
That first, what you want to do, actually, Wizards, is you're going to want to create 2 products where you reprint Mana Crypt and then the Jewel Lotus, and you're going to want people to buy a lot of those, make a lot of money, and then wait a few months, have a separate entity, such as the Commander Rules Committee, so you're blameless, you don't want to deal with this, have them ban the cards, they take all the flack. You want to make sure that there's a really prominent content creator on there first, so we set all that up too.
Yep.
So sorry, Olivia, but like,
you have to take one for the team here.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. Notably, I believe when they made their announcement that they were ceasing their work, or at least they were handing over the keys, I believe they cited a lot of the death threats and harassment as one of the main reasons. I don't know if that's 100% accurate. That's what I recall reading it. And also the other I think statements I saw, Olivia made a statement after that was announced saying like, This isn't what I wanted to happen. I'll write more about it later. This is terrible. Be kind to people and stuff like that. So I would assume that obviously we can't consider the rules committee a monolith. We don't know what everyone's opinion on this sort of thing was. Maybe it was a decision by a majority of the group. Maybe there, I don't know. So we don't really know all that stuff.
Actually, after the bannings, because there was so much hate. Part of the story is Jim actually came out and said that Olivia on the rules committee, normally they don't expose how people voted because that might just invite more hate. But in this situation, he actually said she was opposed to banning Mana Crypt and Jewel Lotus. She was in favor of banning Dockside and Nadu, so a smaller size banning, and I don't think anyone really cares about Nadu, so it pretty much would have just been a Dockside ban.
Yeah.
And then waiting to see how people react to that, and then kind of get some other stuff going, and then doing, and so
just to get some probably shared that. I'm sure he was entirely truthful, by the way. I'm not saying he's lying, but I'm sure sharing that was obviously to try to get people from throwing their blame at the wrong place, right? And maybe they shouldn't throw the blame at all, but
yeah.
Yeah, but
problem with that being that's a rational thought process, and like we were talking about earlier, the thing that protects the rules committee is just not being forward facing,
a little bit of anonymity.
Whoever is the most forward facing person is always going to take the most. So it's going to be Olivia, probably no matter what.
Yep. And that's a shame.
Which is just really unfortunate because clearly I think I didn't see anybody after they put that out. That seems like a really good plan to me. You do you ban 2 cards. And then, maybe if you're planning this other stuff, you wait until, the next announcement in November. And say maybe ban, 1 more card. And then, because you got people thinking,
Maybe even comment... Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, you say something about the fast mana.
You say, we're looking into fast mana. We might ban this in the future. Maybe the prices go... People sell out. Maybe the prices go down a little bit slowly,
Yeah, which is the hard part about it, because, with this type of banning, with the financial ramifications, there's really not a great way to do it. Because if you say, oh, we're looking at fast mana, or we might ban something, you've effectively banned it, right? Because people are going to sell out, and it's going to cause a whole.
But at least people will feel better about it when it gets banned.
it'll be less of a shock. So there's that.
Making an announcement that they're hey, we're looking into banning this, that solves a lot of problems probably. And then then the people that can be stuck holding the bag for that are the people that are trying to buy up those cards for the chance that they don't get banned, and now they. Now it's the big investors that are not that I think big investors they know the risk they're taking, I guess, right? They're aware of the risk.
Yeah, so this is really just the end of an era. It's kind of big sad to me because the Commander Rules Committee, it's been a staple of discussion here on EDH Takes.
Yeah, for years.
Committee, and I've had a lot of respect for the as much as
yes.
we goof sometimes, or even on this episode talking about the inconsistency thing and everything.
Especially Sheldon.
I really respect, and I respect the current rules committee. I just don't know a lot of them very well.
Yeah,
Jim and Olivia, I feel like I know pretty well. I think they're very good people, and they care a lot about the format. I think that Jim is an incredibly well-spoken individual, and I think that Olivia has a level of passion for Magic that is probably nearly unmatched. It's Josh Lee Kwai levels of investment.
Yeah. And then the other 3 older members, like you said, Eli, they've written articles and stuff. We can respect their stuff they've written, but we don't know them as well.
They clearly care a lot about the format, and I've always appreciated their very measured responses to things.
Yeah,
that they were very conservative with bannings and
very careful. Yeah,
didn't ever do anything that crazy.
But yeah, why don't we talk about how we feel about the format being moved over to a Wizards run format, because I think that's a pretty hot topic among the Magic community, especially the Magic community online. And that is because, there is this I think there is this notion that Wizards fucks everything up that they handle, right? That we don't want Commander is the last bastion of hope for Magic because it's not run by Wizards, greedy Wizards corporation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to start off by saying that we have, and on EDH Takes, we have praised Wizards for their handling of certain things a lot when it comes to Commander, and we've criticized, some things. So, for example, I think a couple years ago we were very positive about how Wizards rolled out some of the precons being very good, very well, well designed, fun. I think like the silver quill or whatever the Harry Potter set was. Those precons, they got people to help work on it. They were really cool. They felt like they were good gameplay.
Yeah.
But we've also criticized Wizards in the sense that we think that a lot of their printing some commanders they make for Commander are not very fun, not great designs,
or
just too much.
The amount of Commander design and Universes Beyond being a constant thing. But I gotta say, for every Universes Beyond Commander decks that I'm not a huge fan of, I always know people who are a huge fan of those things. But also, they made Commander Legends. Aside from Jewel Lotus, Commander Legends I think is one of the best things that ever happened to Commander.
Legends 1 was awesome.
And even Commander Legends Baldur's Gate, while I'm not as big a fan of the setting and like the certain mechanics in there, also very good.
Yep. So that is to say that we're not we're not super biased in one direction for hate and love for Wizards of the Coast, but I would say my opinion on Wizards having Commander is I am in between ambivalent and pessimistic. I'm not I'm not near doomsday, but I'm in between, like ambivalent and pessimistic, somewhere in the middle of that. What do you think? What do you think, Eli? Where are you in that range?
Yeah. So
if 1 to 10, 1 is doomsday, 10 is amazing.
There was a stream earlier today where they were addressing this shift, and one thing they had Aaron Forsyth, Gavin Verhey, and I'm blanking on the other guy right now, but they were discussing these changes, and presumably Gavin's going to play a big part in overseeing this new Commander Management Committee or whatever they're going to call it now.
I kind of trust Gavin.
Yeah, I think
he's made mistakes, but so have we all.
They care about Gavin cares about the game, and whoever's going to work with him, they care about the game, and they presumably want the best for Commander. And they addressed Aaron addressed the concerns of that Wizards wants to make money rather than like make a good game, and so he kind of tried to put people's minds at ease that they're going to do what's best for the health of the format and the game, because that ultimately should be what makes them the most money.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that, and I do believe that, because the health of the game and making money, they're not things that are mutually exclusive.
There's overlap, yeah.
But the concern with this thing, and it's maybe being too paranoid or pessimistic, but with Wizards being in charge of Commander like this, it raises a lot of what if questions. What if somebody higher up, beyond Mark Rosewater and Aaron Forsyth, what if somebody from Hasbro has an idea to make money in a way that isn't
the healthiest for the format?
How much could they really say no to something like that?
Yeah.
So it's impossible to know if that's going to happen. I'm sure they would do whatever they can to protect it and look after it, and they're going to try to make it as good as they can, but
yeah. So
what if?
So I'm a 4 out of 10, where 5 is neutral, and 1 is doomsday. Are you a 3?
I think right now I'm probably about a 5, because they specifically pointed out that they're going to continue working with the community very heavily. They're going to work with the rules committee members.
Okay.
They're going to work with presumably the people that were on the Commander Advisory Group, because one thing that Olivia said in her statement, or Jim and some of the other people pointed out, and this is really it's really a sad thing to talk about. It's a frustrating thing to talk about sometimes when people weaponize it like this. But in the following year, since he passed away, Commander really feels there's kind of an aspect of Sheldon's legacy living on through it.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be tarnished by this, but it certainly feels there's the possibility that if something did take a bad turn, it would feel that way.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of anxiety, I know, from the rules committee members and the community about this stuff, about is this the last 2 weeks? Is this
is this the end of Commander?
The beginning of the end, or the beginning of the end of Commander as we knew it? And that's just kind of how I'm really hoping, like, I'm optimistic that they're going to keep, like, working to keep things the way they were, or, like, working to, like, just improve, but, like, it's hard to know. Like, moving from, like, the rules committee always kind of felt like they were, like...
They were a level of separation, you know, and...
They were people you could talk to. Like, you could get a whole, like, and they would talk, like, and the commander advisory group and, like, reaching it, like, it felt, like, more personal. And, like, that's hopefully still going to be a thing, but, like, when it, like, becomes, like, ruled by, like, wizards, it feels to me like as much as, like, Gavin, like, might say, like, he interacts with the community, or, like, he tries to, like, and there's, like, wizards, like, members that you can interact with, like, it just gets me wondering, especially, like, post, like, death threats, is this new, like, committee, like, is it going to be, like, mostly, like, they had, like, kind of a...
Will it be nameless and faceless?
Is it going to be, like, more anonymous for, like... Because otherwise, aren't you just, like, shifting the death threats to, like, a new group of people? Like, maybe they're okay with that because they're getting, like, paid for it, but, like...
Dude, they should make a... It's going to be like a... you know, the Obsidat, like, the Ghost Council? They're, like, a conglomeration of, like, four faves.
Hey, as long as they don't ban another... $500 worth of cards, they won't have to be the Ghost Council, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. You know, and like what you were saying, Eli, you know, it's really crazy because, you know, we're a very small Commander channel, all things considered. And I bet, you know, I bet we probably could have, I bet Sheldon would have come on our podcast if he was still here.
Yeah, and you know...
And that's saying something insane, incredible.
There was always, like, the possibility with the Commander Rules Committee being, like, you know, small and, like, relatively, like, you know, unfunded, that, like, maybe somehow EDH could weasel our way onto the Commander Advisory Group. But now that it's run through wizards and, like, they've got people to, like, run background checks and stuff and, like, find out about, like, our sordid and, like, sketchy, like, histories and all the stuff, the terrible things that we've said behind closed doors and,
yeah, you
know, on our Discord server and everything. There's no chance now. They would know.
Yeah. They
would know exactly the type of scum we are.
They'd have the, oh God, what's the committee, or the private investigators that Wizards sent?
Oh, they'd have the Pinkertons.
They'd have the Pinkertons at our doors, yeah.
They look into us.
Yeah, that's one thing with the Rules Committee. Commander has always been like and it has been a grassroots kind of format, and I think it's always taken pride in being grassroots. You know, community built, community driven. I was talking to a couple friends of mine the other day who have played Commander before, don't really actively play right now. Have played a little bit of Commander. They're pretty unenfranchised players. I think some of them even listen to this podcast, you know, but they don't play a lot. But I was explaining, you know, okay, yeah, the Commander's Rules Committee. They're like, oh yeah, where'd they come from, or why, you know, what are they? And I'm like, well, they created Commander, and you know, my friend was like, "What do you mean they created Commander? Like, how do we know that? You know, that's crazy." And it's like, that's not a thing that I think for most formats, whatever, you can really point to a start. But the Rules Committee, you know, Sheldon and a couple other guys and their judges there, they created Commander back in the day, is my understanding at least. So, yeah, it's and I know that's something that Sheldon would always point to when there was questions about, like, why are you guys, you know, the Rules Committee? Why is the Rules Committee who they are? Well, it's really
they created it and then they cultivated it.
Yeah, they put all the work in to make Commander and to turn into what it is. So it's a little bit somber, I suppose, would be a good word to call it. Feels like we're saying goodbye to a friend, and maybe that friend will be better on the other side, but maybe not. We're not sure.
All that being said, like, Commander over the last few years, especially, maybe has outgrown the volunteer rules committee and the volunteer advisory group. And so maybe moving to a more corporate structure, like more like organized, like
maybe it's necessary.
Maybe it'll be a good thing. Maybe it won't be a bad thing. It's just like, I don't know. I'm maybe too much in like the anti-corporation like team, but like it's a corporation. Corporations are made of people, and so
there's like that sterile kind of idea, right? Like of and I'm a big corporation bootlicker. I love corporations, so no, but you know, all things considered, I think Commander is going to be okay, probably.
Well, it's going to be even more okay now that they've solved the power level issue.
Oh, you want to talk about that?
I think we have to. This was the other big announcement of the Wizards eating the rules committee, was that the rules committee had alluded to this thing when they did the ban announcement on the 23rd, that they were working with Wizards to like create some way to like assist casual play and like power level disparities. And like when I saw that in the initial like announcement, I was like, what is that going to look like? What is that? And then when they did their announcement yesterday on the Wizards website,
they gave us a glimpse into it.
Yeah, they talked about this new bracket system that they're working on, which is effectively a new flavor of power level scale, which I don't know why anyone's messing around with this, because we fixed it. We solved this. Maybe we need to update it like post bannings, you think? Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, if you guys don't know what this is about, we made a definitive power level scale video.
Oh yeah,
objective.
And that's the word that they used on the WotC website, is they wanted to make like an objective like scale. And, like,
we already did that.
Like ours works just fine. Like we never have power level issues. Like personally, like
yeah.
I never have an
they'll
issue.
check if you're curious about that. I'll put it in the description. You can check that out.
Yeah, so just look at that, because like, I feel like ours kind of blows this one out of the water. So they've got a 4-bracket system where, like, essentially what they're going to do, and this is still in the works, so I don't want to like talk about like major specifics, and if I get something wrong, bound to happen because it's new and they're still kind of working this out, but there's going to be 4 brackets. They're going to take notable commander cards, either for like power level or just like kind of like stapley cards that people would know, and they're going to sort these cards into 4 different brackets, and with the 4th bracket, or bracket 4 being kind of like the highest like power tier, bracket 1 being like the lowest, and based on the cards you have in your deck, say you have like 2 or 3 cards from bracket 4, that puts your deck into bracket 4. Say you got 1 card from bracket 4. Now this is my understanding.
Yeah.
Puts you into bracket 4.
But they all, and here's the tricky part where it's they mentioned, oh, my deck is bracket 4 with I think they said with Ancient Tomb, but it's
and
bracket
Tomb
2
tribal deck, yeah.
But it's bracket 2 without Ancient, or whatever, without Ancient Tomb.
Yeah.
So maybe I can play with your bracket 2 deck, other than this 1 card. And that just sounds to me like exactly what we have right now with the current like Rule 0 power level discussion. It doesn't seem like this is fixing anything, except for just, I guess what the only thing that this does, in my opinion, is it just puts a spotlight on some cards that are powerful or toxic, but people will already try to play cards that are powerful or toxic and excuse them because I'm playing, I'm playing a Legends commander, so I need to play Mana Crypt.
One thing that got brought up by Gavin and Aaron when they were talking about this is they brought up like CEDH and like if they're going to have like a CEDH person on like the new committee, and Gavin said they're going to have at least 1. And then they brought up like how this bracket system is going to work with that. And like, well, there's no need for a CEDH split because the bracket system is also going to like take care, like that's going to fit. And that'll just be bracket 4 or whatever they end up doing as the top bracket.
So bracket 4 is CEDH, and it's also my deck that has Vampiric Tutor in it. So
we did an episode called The Power Level Paradox where we discussed the 10-point power level scale and the meme of how every deck is a 7, and every deck is a 7 because you're using 5 as the baseline, right?
Yeah, 5 is
and
like,
so
yeah.
we're getting rid of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 is like the baseline, and some people would even consider 5 to be like pre-con.
Sure.
Or like 4 and 5 to be like pre-con. So then you're working at like 5 is like average.
And I'm not below average.
My deck's
above average.
It's above average, but slightly above average is a 6. I'm pretty good at Commander.
I'm better than that.
My deck's got to be at least a 7. But then, like, what people would do on this 10-point scale, and I was actually reminded after seeing, like, the r/EDH, like, scale. On their scale, 9 and 10 are CEDH decks. 8 is, like, what they would consider, like, just below, like, CEDH.
Yeah.
So I wonder why everything's a 7. And this is how this works. So now we're moving from that scale where... And, maybe this is smart of them because if they realize, well, we're not using half these numbers anyways, may as well only have 4 brackets.
May as well be 5 to 8.
So it's going to be like bracket 1, precons, like stuff that could be seen in precons. They said that,
yeah. Bracket 1's precon.
Bracket 2, low power.
Or upgraded precon or something, I don't know.
Low to mid power. Bracket 3.
Every deck.
Mid to high power.
Yeah.
So it's just every deck's a 3 now.
Every deck's a 3. And then,
unless you're able to play like really strong decks without using like any strong cards.
Yeah, and you know, you play a couple cards that are in the 4, but you say my deck's really a 3 because I'm doing like a theme.
So one thing that you and I talked about when we went out and got dinner before this is I had this thought of like, so we've had Rule 0 before. We've had like the 1 to 10 power level scale. How is this going to be actually any different than that, and not just like a different, more confusing, like, or maybe less confused, but like a different flavor of that, and like this is now working with Wizards, and this might be crazy. I put forward this idea of like, what if they're going to do something where they implement this scale, and they either like work it into like the official Commander rules, or at like, because like our game store does like
F&M kind of thing where they give out prizes and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
you have to like sign up for like you put in like an event code on the
app, the
companion app to like play Commander. And so like, what if now like the idea, and like this would always probably come down to like the game store, but what if they try and like kind of soft enforce somehow like that you use this bracket, because like otherwise how is this going to help anyone? Because like Rule 0 and like pregame discussions or like power level stuff, those are all things that like don't work or affect the majority of Commander players, because like a lot of Commander players just like aren't invested enough to like know about this stuff or like think about it that much.
Or even care that much. Yeah. I mean, like they've heard Rule 0, but they're just like, I don't know, I'm just going to play and we'll play a game.
Yeah, so like what's the way to like get that information to people who like aren't seeking it out or like keeping up with it, aside from like, because like if something's on like the ban list, you'll sit down at a Commander pod, and if even at least like one person knows like the Commander ban list, like they'll tell other people, and that's a pretty easy way to get that out. Pretty easy information to find. So is it going to be like along with that, or is it going to be something that like game stores are actually going to try and like actively not like push on people, but like encourage people to do?
I think the most important part about I think if Wizards wants this to be the difference between this and like the old 1 to 10 system, the only difference in my mind really is that this is official, presumably. Mm-hmm. And I think it being official actually does a lot for getting people to kind of follow it, because
it gives us some credibility.
Yeah, because I know for me, a long time ago, even probably still, I was the kind of guy who I wouldn't be a big fan of like house bans. I would be like, no, I would probably maybe not play cards that I think are, toxic maybe, but I would be like, no, I just want to play with like the formats rules, Mm-hmm. Like I'll play by the official rules, I don't want to like, whatever. And that was how I was, and maybe to some extent still am. But I could definitely see myself at least lending more credence to this if it's official versus the r/EDH subreddit quote unquote official 1 to 10 scale that was terrible and disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, like, guys, it's not like somebody would print out and laminate that and bring it to the game store and
cough cough. Someone did that at our game store.
It's the best thing that ever happened. I wish I was there,
dude. Certified Reddit moment.
I wish I had been there. God, that should be a skit on the channel, Spencer, if you're ever on doing those.
Yeah, but in conclusion, I don't think I like this idea that they have. Obviously, it's not fully developed, but I'm not a fan. What do you think, Eli?
Well, I suppose it's better to try and fail.
Yeah, sure.
And to never try and address, because this is probably
the biggest problem.
One of the bigger issues in Commander is that this is just I'm more in favor. I think the system should be, you get to rank the level of fun based on the individual person, and if enough people give you enough like negative like votes or comments, you are banned from the store.
That's
you can
good.
Never come back.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some other type of like punishment, like maybe physically, like you could throw like rocks at this person or something.
We do that on YouTube and Twitter. If someone says enough cringe stuff, we just we throw rocks at them until they go away.
Yeah. So like,
why not do it in person?
Like, yeah, because it always, I think, comes down to the social aspect less than the cards, because Commander players, ourselves included, are incredibly capable of a form of self-censorship or just like self-control when it comes to like the level of power you can play, which is like, we like understand that you can do pretty broken things with Commander, but generally we try not to unless we're playing with people that we know are like doing that sort of thing. Like if you're playing with a stranger, I think you and we wouldn't just like by default pull out like our strongest deck. Like maybe like a precon to kind of like test the waters, and from there it's kind of like aiming like an artillery piece. Like you kind of take a shot and you adjust.
Yeah, you you figure it out. You do some guessing and checking, but it's usually better to err on the safe side there. So I'm not sure what this changes. Maybe it helps, like I said, Eli, maybe like you said, it's better to try and fail than to not try at all. And maybe the officialness of it being a Wizards sanctioned power level system actually does a lot for it. So interested to see where this goes.
One thing about it though, like I wonder, so if like bracket 4 is going to be like CDH, right? Or like super high power, but there's like cards, like pretty strong cards on there, but you like want to have like a few of those cards like in your like less powerful decks.
Do you just build your decks different?
Does that just become like a second like ban list if like you do have like this thing aspect of like play at the store?
No one plays 4 at my store, so now that's in my ban list. I can't play any of these cards. I can't play these 4 cards.
Because you can't have one in your like deck unless you're like able to make like a really good argument like as to like why you maybe could. But
but that's always like a slippery slope kind of thing. Like, well, maybe that's not true, but it feels like when you're trying to make arguments for playing broken cards, it feels like it's almost kind of bad faith. It isn't always,
No, I'm always it was very good faith every time I played Dockside Extortionist.
Yes.
The rules committee said that it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Until they did.
I play, I play Ancient Tomb in a couple decks, and it's perfectly fine. It's Boros. I don't have ramp otherwise. What am I supposed to do? Haha.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think they're gonna do that, being like, oh yeah, this card is broken in a Simic deck. This is a 4 in a Simic deck. But if you're playing something else,
I just played Mana Crypt in my Gisela deck because it was a synergy piece because she takes the 3 damage down to 1.
Yeah, and if you're playing Smothering Tithe and you're playing mono white or a white green, a color that doesn't have a wheel in it, then you're chilling. Or if you don't have a wheel in your deck, it's actually only a level 3 card or something. But in combination with a wheel in your deck, it's a 4. It's like, okay.
That's my other worry with like the bracket system is like
confusing.
Is like how exactly are they going to determine what cards go where? Because an example they gave for the bracket system, it was mostly it's sorted by power level of cards, but also in bracket 4 they put Armageddon, which is a card that sure it tends to only show up in like higher power games because people just like don't play it, but like I think Armageddon most of the time is a card that actively makes your deck worse. So it's not like there for power. It's there because like people socially don't like it.
Like, are they going to put like Worldfire in there, or are they going to? Well, do you think they would ever use this as an excuse to unban cards and put them in tier 4? Like, are they going to? Is Dream Halls, is that what part of this ban? Am I thinking a different card? I think I'm thinking a different card.
Dream Halls is legal. Probably should be in bracket 4.
What's the blue like big expensive with the like 7 or the 9 mana blue enchantment?
Omniscience?
No, the banned. There's some
banned blue.
I think there's a blue and banned blue enchantment. I could be misremembering. I think it's like one of those stupid things where it's like
just an annoying card.
Yeah, so maybe they can unban one of those and put it in tier 4 or something. Like, is that something we want? I don't know. I'm gonna look at the ban list and find that while you talk.
We will see. But yeah, I just I've been a power level scale hater for years. I think the 10-point scale is just always seemed funny and never works, and nobody ever agrees on what's what, and everything's a 7, and it's just like such a meme in the Commander community now that I think the easy answer is like I understand like the desire to like do something like this, because the easy answer is always like, oh, just talk to people, just have a conversation, and that is the answer, but it's kind of dismissive when you're thinking about the fact that like the average Magic player, especially with strangers, especially given the fact, and I don't like to think of it like this, but the fact that a lot of strangers are kind of acting in bad faith or trying to like get one over on people and like not representing things correctly. It's an incredibly hard conversation to have, more than I think it gets credit for with strangers. With your friends, easy conversation to have. As much as r/EDH might make you think it's not. Like, oh, I tried talking to my friends the other day, and yeah, I wasn't able to. It's like, well, no, I don't think you tried very hard.
You can try harder. It's fine.
Like, man, my friends don't just like think exactly how I do about everything in Commander. Like, what would you guys do? What would you guys do, strangers on the internet? Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking of... It's not enchantment. I was thinking of Sway of the Stars.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, not enchantment, a sorcery, but yeah. Yeah, maybe they'll unban that and be like, that's a 4, you know? That's a 4. Because it's not fun like Armageddon, haha. But yeah.
I'm so excited for next Monday, Spencer.
Oh, yeah.
See what's
for the
happen.
next thing that's going to happen?
The next seal that will be broken in the EDH Takes Apocalypse.
Yep. Well, you guys, I know you haven't come to expect regular uploads from EDH Takes, but one of the reasons for that is that I've been away a little bit at work, and I'm going to be kind of out of town for most of the rest of the year. Maybe we'll get another episode in for the 1 week or 2 that I am back, but probably don't expect much until maybe later December. Apologies for that. But we had to come by and do the emergency episode for this,
yeah.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. It'd be nice, though, because like, it'll give me more like time to like bottle up everything I want to say about Commander to you, and then you'll show up for like 1 day, and then we'll just get everything out.
Exactly. So there could potentially be other videos that get made, but I wouldn't hold your breath. You know, you guys, if you're a longtime fan, you know the deal. You know what to expect. I do want to say, you know what? I'll save the Commander predictions for the start of the new year. Actually, we'll revisit that. So
yeah. So everyone, hang in there. Everything's gonna be okay. You know, they may have taken our Mana Crypts and our Jewel Lotuses and our Dockside Extortionists from us, but they can't ever take our spirits. They can't take EDH Takes.
They can't take our what's the name of the EDH Takes card?
They can't take our
the art.
They can't take our will to upload a
video every
content
couple months.
away from us, because that is already gone.
Yeah,
that's been gone. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I'd be really curious to know what everyone thinks about this. If there's anything that we got wrong or you want to argue about, please hit us up in the comments. I'm always looking to hear disrespectful comments and stuff, and then respond to them in like kind of a shitposty way. So,
also, dude, the tier list comments are always amazing. They're always like, put this in B tier, opinion discarded. Those are my favorite comments.
That's the best.
Those are based. So say that and respond. Asked for CDH to splinter out to a different format, opinion discarded. Please hit me with that. I've been Spencer Cook.
I'm Elijah Samuelson. We'll hopefully see you guys again soon. Hopefully they do something crazy again and we can have a good topic. So, all right. See ya.